What USP Marion guards found in cell block 13, Illinois maximum security. The air vent cover hit the floor at 11:47 p.m. Officer Daniel Martinez heard it from 30 feet away. Stay with this story. What they found inside that vent would shut down the most secure prison wing in America for 17 days. USP Marion, Southern Illinois. Control Unit. October 1983. The federal prison system's answer to inmates too dangerous for anywhere else. Cell block 13 housed 32 men in permanent lockdown. 23 hours a day in concrete boxes. 1 hour in shackles for exercise. No contact. No privileges. Maximum control. Martinez had worked the midnight shift for 8 months. He knew the sounds of cell block 13. Metal on metal. Ventilation hum. Occasional shouting. But not this. Not the deliberate clang of a vent cover being removed from inside a sealed cell. He grabbed his radio and moved toward the sound. Cell 13-7. Inmate Thomas Silverstein. Serving life for murder. Recently transferred from Leavenworth for killing a guard. The most dangerous man in federal custody. Martinez looked through the observation slot. Silverstein sat on his bunk, reading. The vent cover lay on the floor beside the toilet. Silverstein. Explain the vent. Silverstein looked up. No aggression. Just tired. It fell. Rusted screws. I was going to report it in the morning. Martinez radioed control. Need maintenance to 13-7. Vent cover failure. Copy. Log it for day shift. Negative. This needs immediate inspection. Silence. Then, it's a vent cover, Martinez. Can it wait 6 hours? Martinez looked at the cell again. The vent opening was barely visible. 10 inches square. Too small for a person, but big enough for something else. I'm calling for inspection now, Martinez said. Maintenance arrived at 12:20 a.m. 2 technicians with flashlights and tools. They examined the vent from outside the cell. Silverstein remained on his bunk, cooperative. Screws are stripped, the lead technician said. Could have fallen on its own. Check the duct, Martinez insisted. The technician gave him a look but complied. He shone his flashlight into the opening. His expression changed. There's something in there. Martinez felt his stomach tighten. What? Can't tell. But it shouldn't be there. They opened the cell with full protocol. 4 officers. Restraints. Silverstein was moved to a holding area without incident. The technician reached into the vent. He pulled out a plastic bag. Inside, 23 hand-drawn diagrams. Architectural sketches of cell block 13. Guard rotations. Camera angles. Shift changes. Every security detail of the control unit. Documented over months. Martinez stared at the drawings. How did he get this information? He didn't, the technician said quietly. Someone gave it to him. They searched Silverstein's cell for 3 hours. Found nothing else. No tools. No contraband. No evidence of communication with other inmates. Just the diagrams. Hidden in the vent. Waiting. The warden was notified at 3:15 a.m. Harold Miller. 26 years in corrections. Built USP Marion's control unit from the ground up. He arrived at 4 a.m. and reviewed the evidence. Where did these come from? He asked Martinez. We don't know. Silverstein claims he found them in the vent when he arrived. Says they were already there. You believe him? Martinez hesitated. The diagrams are too detailed. Too current. Someone with access created these. Miller studied the drawings. Guard schedules from the past week. Camera blind spots that only staff would know. This is an inside job, Miller said. Someone on our team is feeding intelligence to the most dangerous inmate in the facility. Why? That's what we're going to find out. The investigation started with access logs. Every staff member who'd entered cell block 13 in the past 90 days. Every maintenance call. Every shift supervisor. 47 names. Miller pulled 6 senior officers into his office at 6 a.m. Martinez included. Someone in this facility is compromised, Miller said. Either corrupted or coerced. Until we know who, cell block 13 goes into full lockdown. No movement. No maintenance. Minimal staff contact. One officer spoke up. "Sir, that's 32 inmates. You're punishing everyone for one man's contraband. I'm preventing whatever was being planned with these diagrams. What if nothing was being planned? What if Silverstein was telling the truth?" Miller held up one of the sketches. "These show vulnerabilities we didn't know existed. Blind spots in our camera coverage. Windows in our patrol patterns. Someone mapped our weaknesses and gave them to an inmate who's already killed one guard." The room went quiet. "Find out who," Miller said, "before they finish what they started." The interrogations began at 8 a.m. Every guard, every technician, every administrative staff member who'd had access. Most had alibis, camera footage, witnesses, logs that cleared them. But 3 didn't. Officer Raymond Cole, 10 years at Marion, worked cell block 13 rotation. Maintenance supervisor Lisa Brennan, 8 years, supervised all vent repairs. And Officer Daniel Martinez, 8 months, found the diagrams. Miller brought Martinez in last. "You discovered the evidence," Miller said. "Convenient. I reported it immediately. After midnight, when fewer witnesses are around." Martinez felt his pulse spike. "You think I planted it? I think someone wanted those diagrams found. Maybe to cover their tracks. Maybe to create chaos. Why would I do that? You tell me." Martinez leaned forward. "I found evidence of a security breach and reported it. If I were involved, I'd have buried it." Miller studied him. "Unless you wanted us looking at other people instead of you." The investigation stalled for 2 days. No one confessed. No evidence pointed clearly at anyone. Cell block 13 remained on lockdown. Inmates grew restless. 2 separate incidents of cell flooding. 1 attempted self-harm. The pressure was building. On day 3, Officer Cole requested a meeting with Miller. "I need to tell you something," Cole said. His hand shook. "Go ahead." 6 weeks ago, my daughter was in a car accident. Hospital bills. Insurance wouldn't cover everything. I was drowning. Miller's expression didn't change. "Someone approached me, outside the prison, said they'd pay my bills if I did a favor." "What favor?" "Photographs. Of the guard schedule board. The camera system diagram in the security office. I thought it was for a lawsuit. Some inmate's family building a case." "Who approached you?" "I don't know. It was a phone call. Money was left in a locker at the gym. I never saw anyone." Miller closed his eyes. "You gave classified security information to an unknown party." "I didn't think." "You're right. You didn't think. And now we have an inmate with a complete map of our vulnerabilities." Cole's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this." Miller had Cole arrested immediately. Federal charges. Conspiracy. Bribery. But it didn't answer the bigger question. Who was Cole working for? And what were they planning to do with the information? Miller ordered a review of all camera footage from the past 90 days. Looking for patterns. Unusual behavior. Anything that connected to the diagrams. They found it on day 4. Maintenance Supervisor Brennan had entered cell block 1343 times in 3 months. Average maintenance calls per quarter, 12. She'd been going in 3 times as often as necessary. Miller brought her in. "Why so many service calls to cell block 13? Brennan looked tired. "It's an old wing. Things break." 43 times? It's a high-security area. Every issue gets immediate attention. "Show me the work orders." Brennan pulled the files. Each call documented. Each repair logged. But Miller noticed something. 9 of the calls were for ventilation issues. In different cells. Including cell 13 to 7. "You repaired Silverstein's vent 3 times in 2 months, Miller said. "It kept failing. Or you kept accessing his cell to deliver the diagrams." Brennan's expression shifted. Fear replaced fatigue. "I want a lawyer." Brennan broke after 6 hours. Her son was in prison. Different facility. Gang threats. Someone promised protection if she cooperated. She'd been delivering intelligence to Silverstein for 3 months. Not directly. Hidden in vent covers she'd repair. Small folded papers with updated security information. She didn't know what it was for. She just wanted her son safe. Miller felt sick. 2 corrupted staff members. Both coerced. Both desperate. But neither knew the endgame. Who was coordinating this? Miller demanded. I don't know. I get calls. Instructions. I never met anyone. Someone inside or outside the prison? I don't know. Miller returned to cell block 13. They'd solved how the diagrams got there. But not why. Silverstein had intelligence about the facility's security. For 3 months. What was he planning? Miller ordered Silverstein moved to maximum isolation. New cell. Stripped search. 24-hour surveillance. And a full review of every item that had ever entered his cell. The review took 2 days. They found nothing. Except for one detail in the maintenance logs that everyone had missed. Brennan had repaired the vent in cell 13 to 7 3 times. But she'd only replaced the cover twice. Which meant one vent cover was unaccounted for. Miller's blood ran cold. Where's the 3rd cover? They tore apart cell 13 to 7. Didn't find it. Then an officer noticed something in the ventilation duct itself. Not in Silverstein's cell. In the shared air system that connected all 32 cells in cell block 13. They pulled a fiber optic camera into the duct. What they found made everyone freeze. The missing vent cover had been placed 15 feet inside the duct. Behind it, a modified locking mechanism. Sophisticated. Designed to seal the ventilation system from the inside. Someone could crawl into the duct, place the cover behind them, and lock it. Trapping anyone inside the duct. Or sealing gas inside the cell block. Clear the wing, Miller ordered. Everyone out. Now. But when they checked the logs for who'd been in cell block 13 in the past 24 hours, everything changed. Because overnight, during the chaos of the investigation, someone had entered the cell block. Someone with clearance. And they hadn't logged out. Officer Daniel Martinez was missing. His radio wasn't responding. His last known location, cell block 13, entrance checkpoint. Logged in at 2:47 a.m. during the investigation chaos. Never logged out. Warden Miller stared at the access log. When did anyone last see Martinez? The control room operator checked cameras. He entered at 2:47 like it shows. But he's not on any footage after that. What do you mean he's not on footage? The cameras show him entering. Then, nothing. Like he vanished. Miller felt ice in his veins. Pull every angle. Every camera in that wing. They reviewed 6 hours of footage in 20 minutes. Martinez appeared at the entrance. Scanned his badge. Walked through the security door. Then disappeared from every camera angle. Impossible in a facility with 93 cameras covering cell block 13. Unless someone knew exactly where the blind spots were. The same blind spots documented in Silverstein's diagrams. He's still inside, Miller said. Lock down the entire wing. Nobody in or out. And find him. The tactical response team entered cell block 13 at 8:15 a.m. Full gear. Body armor. Gas masks. Miller coordinated from outside. Cell by cell. Every inch. Martinez is in there somewhere. The team moved methodically. Cell 13 to 1 empty. Inmate secured. Cell searched. Nothing. Cell 13 to 2, same. Cell 13 to 3, same. They reached cell 13 to 7. Silverstein's former cell. Still vacant after his transfer. The door was sealed. Protocol had been followed. But when they opened it, something was wrong. The toilet had been removed from its bolts. The floor drain beneath it had been pried open. A maintenance access shaft. Leading down to the plumbing system. Wide enough for a person. We've got unauthorized access, the team leader radioed. Someone's in the infrastructure. Miller's mind raced. Martinez or someone else? Can't tell. But the drain cover was removed recently. Within hours. Seal it. And check every other cell for similar access points. They found 2 more. Cell 13 to 14, floor drain opened. Access to the same plumbing shaft. Cell 13 to 22, vent duct enlarged. Access to the ventilation system. Someone had created multiple entry points into the facility's infrastructure. Not escape routes. Access routes. Ways to move through the prison unseen. This wasn't about Silverstein, Miller said slowly. He was the distraction. One of the officers looked confused. Distraction from what? From whatever's actually happening. Miller pulled the building schematics. The plumbing and ventilation systems for cell block 13. They shared infrastructure with 3 other areas: the medical wing, the kitchen, and the administrative offices, including the armory. Miller grabbed his radio. All units, immediate security check on the armory. I need confirmation all weapons are accounted for. Static. Then, armory check shows, we've got a problem. What problem? 2 pistols missing. Removed from inventory sometime in the past 72 hours. The room went silent. 2 weapons. Unaccounted for. And Martinez was somewhere inside cell block 13 with access to the entire prison's infrastructure. Find him, Miller ordered. Now. They sent teams into the maintenance shafts. Narrow. Claustrophobic. The plumbing shaft descended 2 levels before branching into multiple passages. One team found something 15 minutes in. Martinez's radio. Abandoned in a junction point. No other trace of him. He left it deliberately, the team leader said. Didn't want to be tracked. Miller's hands clenched. Then he knows we're looking for him. Or he wanted us to find it. Why? Same reason Silverstein wanted us to find the diagrams. Misdirection. Miller thought about the timeline. The diagrams discovered 4 days ago. Cole and Brennan arrested. Everyone focused on the security breach. Meanwhile, Martinez had been the officer who found the evidence. The one who insisted on immediate investigation. The one who'd been at Marion only 8 months. Long enough to learn the facility. Not long enough to be fully vetted by colleagues. Pull Martinez's file, Miller said. Everything. Background check. References. Previous employment. The report came back in 30 minutes. And it didn't make sense. Martinez's previous job, corrections officer at FCI Terre Haute. 3 years. Clean record. But when Miller called Terre Haute to verify, they had no record of anyone named Daniel Martinez. The employment history was fabricated. Who is he? Miller asked aloud. Nobody answered. Because nobody knew. The search expanded to all accessible infrastructure. Ventilation ducts. Plumbing shafts. Electrical conduits. Cable runs. Anywhere a person could move unseen. They found evidence of recent passage in multiple locations. Tool marks. Disturbed dust. Fibers from clothing. Someone had been using the prison's guts as a highway. For months. While everyone focused on controlling the inmates, someone had been learning to control the building. Check the administrative wing, Miller ordered. Offices. Records room. Communications. The team reached the records room at 11:40 a.m. The door was locked. Security seal intact. But when they opened it, the filing system was disturbed. Not ransacked. Carefully searched. Specific files removed. What files are missing? Miller asked. The records officer checked the log. Inmate transfer requests. From the past 6 months. Which inmates? The officer went pale. All of them. Every inmate who was transferred out of Marion in the past 6 months. 23 names. Miller felt his chest tighten. Someone's tracking our transfers. Where inmates went. What facilities? What security levels? Why would Martinez need that information? Maybe he's not working alone. They found the first body at 1:15 p.m. Maintenance worker. Carl Henderson. 56 years old. 20 years at Marion. Dead in a utility room adjacent to the kitchen. Single gunshot wound. Close range. One of the missing pistols nearby. The medical examiner estimated time of death, approximately 3 a.m. 30 minutes after Martinez entered cell block 13. Henderson had access to the infrastructure, one officer noted. He knew the maintenance shafts. Did he know Martinez? They worked different shifts. Probably never met. Miller looked at the body. At the wound. At the weapon left behind. This wasn't personal, he said. Henderson saw something. Or was in the wrong place. What was Martinez doing in the kitchen at 3 a.m.? They searched the kitchen. Found another access point in the walk-in freezer. Floor drain. Recently opened. And a backpack. Hidden behind frozen food shipments. Inside, 3 inmate identification cards. From inmates who'd been transferred months ago. Stolen from the records room. Prison guard uniforms. 2 complete sets. Patches removed. And a handwritten list of names. 11 people. All corrections officers at different facilities across the federal system. These aren't Marion staff, Miller said, studying the list. These are officers at the facilities where our transferred inmates went. Is Martinez planning to contact them? Or kill them? The implications settled over the room like poison. Martinez wasn't just stealing information about transfers. He was targeting specific officers at multiple prisons. This wasn't about Marion. It was a coordinated operation across the entire federal prison system. We need to alert every facility on this list, Miller said. And we need to find Martinez before he gets out of this building. They sealed every exit. Doors. Windows. Loading docks. Maintenance hatches. If Martinez was still inside, he'd have to come out eventually. But hours passed. No sign of him. The inmates in cell block 13 grew louder. Angry. Demanding answers about the lockdown. Officers were exhausted. The facility was paralyzed. Miller sat in his office at 6 p.m., reviewing everything. The diagrams. The corrupted staff. The missing weapons. The stolen files. The dead maintenance worker. And Martinez. Who wasn't Martinez? Who are you? Miller whispered. His phone rang. A known number. He answered. Warden Miller. The voice was calm. Familiar. Martinez. Where are you? Somewhere you'll never find me. But I wanted you to understand something before I leave. Understand what? That your prison was never secure. That your inmates were never controlled. That every system you built had a weakness. And all it took was one person who knew how to look. Miller's blood pressure spiked. You killed Carl Henderson. He was collateral. Wrong place, wrong time. I regret that. What are you after? Justice. For what? Martinez? Or whoever he was first. My brother was killed at USP Leavenworth 2 years ago. Inmate on inmate violence. The guards did nothing. They let it happen. Miller's mind flashed to Silverstein. Transferred from Leavenworth after killing a guard. Silverstein killed your brother. No. Your system killed my brother. Silverstein was just the weapon. But the guards who let it happen, who looked the other way, who allowed the culture of violence, they're all still working. Just at different facilities now. The list of names. The officers on your list were at Leavenworth, Miller said. Then they got transferred. Promoted. Rewarded. While my brother died in a cell and nobody was held accountable. So you infiltrated Marion to track them. I infiltrated Marion to prove it could be done. To show that your maximum security is an illusion. That any facility can be compromised if someone is patient enough. Miller felt his teeth clench. You're not going to reach those officers. We've already warned them. I don't need to reach them. I've already accomplished what I came for. Which is exposing the system. When this story breaks, when the media finds out that a civilian infiltrated a control unit for 8 months, corrupted 2 staff members, accessed the Armory, stole classified records, and moved through the facility like a ghost, what do you think happens to federal prison credibility? Miller's stomach dropped. This wasn't about revenge. It was about exposure. Martinez wanted to destroy the reputation of the entire federal prison system by proving its most secure facility wasn't secure at all. You killed a man, Miller said. That's murder. You'll spend the rest of your life in the system you're trying to expose. Only if you catch me. The line went dead. They never found Martinez inside the facility. Because he wasn't inside anymore. At 7:30 p.m., a delivery truck that had dropped off kitchen supplies that morning was stopped at a random checkpoint 20 miles away. The driver was legitimate. The truck was registered. Everything checked out. Except for the maintenance panel on the undercarriage. It had been opened from the inside. Martinez had hidden in the truck's cargo area during the morning delivery. Before the lockdown. Before anyone knew he was missing. He'd been gone for 16 hours. By the time they realized how he'd escaped, he'd disappeared completely. No trail. No leads. No trace. Just a phone call and a story that would haunt USP Marion forever. Warden Miller stood in his office that night, staring at the diagram Silverstein had kept in the vent. Silverstein hadn't been planning an escape. He'd been documenting Martinez's research. Watching. Learning. Understanding that someone was studying the facility from the inside. Maybe even helping in subtle ways. Because Silverstein understood something Miller didn't want to admit. That the system wasn't secure. That control was an illusion. That any structure built by humans could be dismantled by humans who understood how to look for cracks. Miller thought about the 11 officers on Martinez's list. They'd been warned. Protected. Relocated. But somewhere Martinez was still out there. With stolen files. With knowledge. With a mission. And 8 months of experience proving that the federal prison system's most secure facility could be compromised by one determined person. The story broke 3 days later. National news. Congressional inquiries. Investigations into every aspect of Marion's security. 2 staff members arrested. 1 murder. Multiple security breaches. And an unknown infiltrator who'd vanished. The control unit was shut down for 73 days while every system was reviewed and rebuilt. But the damage was done. The illusion of maximum security had been shattered. And everyone knew it. The FBI identified Martinez 6 weeks later. Not through investigation. Through surrender. He walked into the Chicago field office on November 28, 1983. Alone. Unarmed. Asked to speak with the agent in charge. His real name was David Castellano. Former Army intelligence officer. Honorably discharged. No criminal record. Until Marion. Special Agent Rebecca Torres sat across from him in the interrogation room. Why turn yourself in? Castellano looked tired but calm. Because the point was never to hide. It was to expose. You killed a man. I know. And I'll answer for that. But first, you need to understand what I found. Torres activated the recording equipment. Go ahead. Castellano's brother, Michael, had been serving 12 years at USP Leavenworth for armed robbery. Non-violent. Model inmate. Eligible for transfer to a lower security facility. In June 1981, Michael was killed in his cell. Stabbed 17 times. Inmate on inmate violence. The official report said guards responded within minutes. But the autopsy showed Michael had bled out over 15 minutes. Help had arrived too late. I didn't believe the timeline, Castellano said. So I filed complaints. Requested investigations. Contacted every oversight agency that existed. And? Nothing. The system protects itself. Officers close ranks. Evidence disappears. Witnesses forget. My brother's death was ruled a tragic incident and the case was closed. Torres made notes. So you decided to take matters into your own hands. I decided to understand how the system actually works. Not how it's supposed to work. How it does. Castellano explained that he'd spent a year researching federal corrections. Procedures. Protocols. Hiring practices. I learned that the system prioritizes control over safety. That guards are trained to manage inmates, not protect them. That violence is acceptable as long as it stays contained. And you infiltrated Marion to prove that? I infiltrated Marion to prove that if the system can't protect inmates, it also can't protect itself. Castellano had created the Daniel Martinez identity over 6 months. Fake employment history. References from officers who'd left corrections. Paperwork that would pass standard background checks but not deep investigations. Why Marion specifically? Because it's the control unit. The pinnacle of federal security. If I could compromise Marion, I could prove the entire system was vulnerable. He'd applied for a corrections officer position, been accepted, started work in February 1983, and immediately began studying the facility's weaknesses. The first thing I learned was that inmates aren't the problem. Infrastructure is. Torres leaned forward. Explain. Marion was built in 1963, expanded in 1979. But the core systems, plumbing, ventilation, electrical, were never fully upgraded. You've got 1960s infrastructure trying to support modern maximum security. Castellano had spent months mapping the building's bones. Every shaft, every duct, every access point. I'd work my shift, then spend hours in maintenance areas. Nobody questioned it. Officers don't pay attention to the building. They pay attention to inmates. That's how you moved through the facility unseen. The prison wasn't designed to stop people who understand its architecture. It was designed to stop people in cells. Torres checked her notes. How did Silverstein get involved? Castellano smiled slightly. Silverstein was a test. Thomas Silverstein had arrived at Marion in May 1983, transferred from Leavenworth after killing a guard, the most dangerous inmate in federal custody. Castellano had requested assignment to cell block 13 specifically to observe him. Silverstein is intelligent, observant. He notices things other inmates miss. Castellano had deliberately left small clues during his infrastructure mapping. Tools slightly out of place. Access covers not fully secured. I wanted to see if he'd notice. If he'd understand what I was doing. Silverstein had noticed. And started watching Castellano more carefully. He figured out I wasn't a real guard. Or at least that I wasn't following standard procedures. So I gave him a test. The diagrams. Castellano had created them over weeks. Detailed security documentation. Deliberately left them where Silverstein could find them. Why give him that information? To see what he'd do with it. If he'd try to escape, I'd know he was just another violent inmate. If he studied them and waited, I'd know he understood the bigger picture. Silverstein had studied them, kept them hidden, watched Castellano continue his work. He knew I was exposing the system, and he was curious to see how far I'd go. Torres felt a chill. So when Officer Martinez found the diagrams, I planted them. I wanted the investigation to start. I needed the chaos to cover my final moves. The corrupted officers, Cole and Brennan, had been targeted specifically. Castellano had researched every staff member at Marion, looking for vulnerabilities. Cole had financial problems. Brennan had a son in danger. I never contacted them directly. I used intermediaries. People outside the prison who'd make the approach. Who were the intermediaries? Other families. People whose loved ones had been killed in federal custody. People the system had failed. Torres felt her stomach turn. You built a network. I proved one already existed. Families who've lost people in prison. Families who've been ignored by oversight. There are hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Castellano had connected with them through support groups and advocacy organizations. I told them I was documenting systemic failures. That I needed help accessing information. Most didn't know what I was really doing. But some did. Some understood that the only way to change the system is to expose it completely. To prove it can't protect anyone, not inmates, not staff, not itself. Torres reviewed the list of 11 officers from multiple facilities. These were the guards on duty when your brother was killed. These were the guards who let it happen. Who heard him screaming and decided their break was more important. Who falsified reports to cover their negligence. And you were planning to kill them? Castellano met her eyes. No. I was planning to expose them. To document their current positions, their continued employment, their lack of accountability. To show that the system protects abusers. The stolen weapons suggest otherwise. The stolen weapons were insurance. In case I was discovered before I could get out. I never intended to use them. Except you did use one. On Carl Henderson. Castellano's expression cracked for the first time. That was a mistake. An accident. He found me in the maintenance shaft. Panicked. Tried to radio for help. I grabbed him to stop him and the gun discharged. Torres didn't buy it. You brought a loaded weapon into a confrontation. I brought protection into a dangerous situation. Henderson's death wasn't planned. It wasn't intended. But it happened, and I accept responsibility. After you escaped. After I completed what I started. Torres pulled surveillance footage from the day of the escape. The kitchen delivery truck. The modified cargo panel. The 20-mile checkpoint. How did you know the truck would be there that morning? I didn't. But I knew delivery schedules. I knew I could hide in multiple vehicles if needed. The truck happened to be the one that arrived during my window. And the checkpoint didn't find you because nobody was looking yet. I just entered cell block 13 an hour before the truck left. Nobody knew I was missing. Torres made notes. Where did you go after you left the truck? Bus station. Cash purchase to Detroit. Then Cleveland. Then Chicago. No attempt to leave the country? Why would I? I wanted to be found. Eventually. After the story broke. After Marion was exposed. Mission accomplished. Castellano nodded. Marion's control unit was shut down. Congressional investigations were launched. The entire federal prison system is being audited. Families of inmates killed in custody are finally being heard. And Carl Henderson is dead. The words hung in the air. Castellano's voice dropped. I know. I'll carry that for the rest of my life. But his death doesn't erase what I proved. Which is that the system is broken. That maximum security is a lie. That the same infrastructure failures that let me move through Marion unseen are the same failures that let my brother bleed out in Leavenworth while guards watched. Torres spent 3 days interviewing Castellano. The FBI verified everything he claimed. The network of families existed. 27 people across 12 states. All connected through grief and anger at a system that had failed them. None knew the full scope of Castellano's plan. Most thought they were helping with documentation for a lawsuit or advocacy campaign. But some had known. 3 families had actively helped. Provided money for fake credentials. Created the intermediary contacts for Cole and Brennan. Supplied the tools he'd used. Federal charges were filed against all 3. But public opinion was divided. News coverage focused on Castellano's infiltration. The security failures. The ease with which he'd compromised Marion. But also on Michael Castellano's death. The guards who'd faced no discipline. The system that had covered it up. Congressional hearings began in January 1984. Every aspect of USP Marion was examined. Staffing. Infrastructure. Procedures. Investigations expanded to other facilities. Including Leavenworth. The guards on Castellano's list were all placed on administrative leave pending investigation. 2 were eventually fired. 3 more resigned. 1 faced criminal charges for falsifying reports. The system was being held accountable. Because one man had proven it could be beaten. Warden Harold Miller testified before Congress in March 1984. He explained the security failures. The corrupted staff. The infrastructure vulnerabilities. Mr. Castellano exposed weaknesses we didn't know existed, Miller admitted. But he also killed a man. Those 2 facts don't cancel each other out. A senator asked, if the system had properly investigated Michael Castellano's death, would David Castellano have felt the need to infiltrate your facility? Miller had no answer. Because the truth was obvious. The system had failed first. David Castellano had just proven how catastrophically. Castellano was convicted of manslaughter in September 1984. Sentenced to 18 years. Federal prison. Ironically, he was sent to USP Leavenworth, the facility where his brother had died. Prison officials protested. Safety concerns. Castellano was a target. But the judge was firm. You wanted to expose the system from inside. Now you'll experience it as an inmate. Castellano accepted the sentence without appeal. In prison, he was segregated for his own protection. Solitary confinement. 23 hours a day in a cell. Just like the inmates at Marion's control unit. He served 11 years before being released on parole in 1995. Agent Rebecca Torres visited him 6 months after his release. He was living in Minnesota, working as a construction foreman. Quiet life. "Why did you agree to meet?" she asked. "Because I assume you have questions the trial didn't answer." Torres pulled out a folder. "During your infiltration, you had access to Marion for 8 months. You documented everything. But the materials you gave us were incomplete." "How so?" "The diagrams showed cell block 13's vulnerabilities. But not the other wings. Not the administrative areas. Not the perimeter security." Castellano smiled. "Correct. Where's the rest?" "Safe. Documented. Waiting." Torres felt her pulse quicken. Waiting for what? For the next time the system needs to be reminded that security is an illusion, that control is temporary, that any structure can be compromised by people who understand how to look. "You're saying there are others?" "I'm saying there have always been others. People the system failed. People who learned to see its weaknesses. Most just want justice. A few want revenge. But all of them understand something corrections officials refuse to accept. Which is that the inmates aren't the only ones trapped in the system. The guards are too. The administrators. The families. Everyone touched by corrections is imprisoned by its failures." Torres closed her folder. "If you're planning something..." "I'm not planning anything. I'm simply observing that the reforms after Marion were temporary. That the attention faded. That facilities went back to prioritizing control over safety. And that somewhere, right now, someone else is learning what I learned. That the system can be beaten. That the system beats itself. It just needs someone willing to show how." Torres filed her report with the FBI. Recommended continued monitoring of Castellano. But no action was taken. He'd served his time. Followed his parole conditions. Posed no apparent threat. 20 years later, in 2015, Torres saw a news report. A corrections officer at a federal facility in California had been arrested for supplying contraband to inmates. The officer had worked there for 9 months. False employment history. Fabricated references. Background check failures that weren't caught until after the arrest. The officer's real name was never released. But in the report, there was a detail that made Torres remember David Castellano. The officer had been documenting infrastructure vulnerabilities. Just like Marion, Torres tried to contact Castellano. His phone was disconnected. His address abandoned. Nobody knew where he'd gone. USP Marion's control unit never fully recovered from the 1983 scandal. The facility was eventually decommissioned. Inmates transferred. Security protocols completely rebuilt. The new Supermax ADX Florence in Colorado was designed with the lessons of Marion in mind. Better infrastructure. Better monitoring. Better control. But in 2019, a documentary filmmaker investigating ADX Florence uncovered something strange. A series of maintenance requests over 18 months. Filed by someone using proper credentials. Accessing areas that didn't need repair. The pattern looked familiar. Someone studying the facility. Learning its weaknesses. Mapping its vulnerabilities. Authorities investigated. Found nothing conclusive. But the maintenance requests stopped after the documentary aired. As if someone had accomplished what they needed to. As if the documentation was complete. And somewhere, someone was waiting. Waiting for the moment when the system needed to be reminded again. That security is an illusion. That control is temporary. That any structure built by humans can be understood, compromised, and exposed by humans who know how to look. This could happen again. Because David Castellano didn't just expose Marion's vulnerabilities. He proved that infiltration is possible. That patient people with motivation can compromise any facility. That the system's greatest weakness isn't the inmates it holds. It's the assumption that it can't be beaten. Federal prisons now conduct deeper background checks. Monitor infrastructure access more carefully. Watch for patterns Castellano pioneered. But they're fighting the last war. Whoever comes next won't use his methods. They'll innovate. They'll find new vulnerabilities. They'll prove that no matter how secure we make our prisons, the human element remains the weakest link. And somewhere tonight, in a facility that believes it's secure, someone might be watching, learning, documenting, waiting, not because they want to escape, but because they want everyone to understand what David Castellano proved in 1983, that the system isn't protecting anyone. It's just creating the illusion that it is. And illusions shatter. Every single time. If this story shook you, the next one will be worse. Because the question isn't whether our prisons are secure. It's whether we're asking the right questions about what security actually means.